Great. Hi, everybody. Welcome. Good evening. Happy Wednesday. Happy December. Welcome to our teach-in on LA City Council expansion. My name is Godfrey Plata, pronouns he, him, his. I get to be the deputy director here at LA Forward Institute. And although we are putting this teach-in together, we're grateful to our colleagues at LA Voice and AAPI Equity Alliance, who are often in coalition with, to the RLA Coalition, or many other coalitions for that matter, who also wanted to make sure that their community members were invited into this conversation. Um, Today, what we're going to do is a lot of learning about something that is happening in progress in real time. And we felt the need at LA Forward Institute as part of our work to make that language just really available to as many people in the public as possible. And that's what tonight is about. I'll go into what we're doing in a moment, but I want to introduce our executive director, David Levitas, who I think is here with us. David, if you want to say hi and share anything else you want
Yeah,
folks to know about LA Ford Institute.
yeah. Thank you all for coming. My name is Dave Levitas, live in Sawtell with my family. Lived here 15, going on more years. So I started LA Ford about 9 years ago with the idea that in this vast county of ours, 10 million people live here. It's like the eighth or ninth largest state. Like we have a lot of amazing work already happening to create a more just county, a thriving county, a fair, flourishing county for everybody. But the truth is, like, there's so many people, more people who could be engaged. So many more people who feel disconnected from their government, who feel like they could be doing more, whether that's voting with more education and knowledge, or showing up to contact their elected officials, or just getting involved. And so our mission, we're a civic education and civic engagement organization. We're a power building organization. We don't just want to get people to know about local government, local issues for the sake of knowing, but so that we can build power to achieve racial and economic justice in our city, in our county. And a big part of the way that we do that is by working in coalition. So we work in many coalitions. One of them is RLA with our partners at API Equity Alliance and LA Voice and many, many others from around the city, around the county. And so really encourage you. I'm going to be hearing from me a little teeny bit at the end, and that's it. But really, if this is your first meeting, encourage you to get involved. Godfrey's going to talk more about it, with so many ways to plug in through working groups, through becoming a dues-paying member of our C4 affiliate, and just really just by coming to more things like this, because as Godfrey's going to talk about, we're in a really critical moment right now for what happens with city reform. And we see it as our mission, part of our mission with our partners to bring many more people in the conversation. This isn't just about City Hall insiders or lobbyists or big money interests or the police union or anything like that. This is about like who works for us as the people, who represents us, how do we have the most effective, accountable, representative government. And so just really glad to see you all here. Looking forward to you being part of our community if you're not already. And I'm going to turn it back over to Godfrey.
Thanks, David. Um, uh, and so today, as part of what David mentioned was our work, we're here to start diving in together around this really wild opportunity to reimagine how our city creates structure around how we are represented and how we get to exert our power within that structure as well. Before we go into today's council size conversation, it is worth giving a little bit of history to how we got here. So we're going to start with a little mini lesson on that for just a few minutes before we dive into some of the models that we're talking about. You're going to see a bunch of slides that have actually been lifted from other teach-ins we've done with RLA, Fair Rep LA, and many other spaces, because this is not a new issue for us, even though we're talking today about some real conversations happening in real time in front of us around models for city council expansion. The conversation has been happening for many years now, and I just want to give a little history to that. And so our 15 council district model that we live in right now was codified 100 years ago, more than 100 years at this point, because we're toward the end of this year. You can see a map from way back when on your screen just now. And so back then, like the size of the city was very different than the 4 million people living in it just now. And so if you do the math, lots of people have called to question whether or not we should revisit this question of how many city council districts we have in our city. And so to compare, we have a couple of different cities analyzed for you on the screen. We have the great pleasure in the city of LA to have the highest ratio of residents to council members in the entire nation. You can see that even though we're the second largest city in the entire nation, only after New York, New York actually has 51 council members, so their council district size is smaller. And Chicago, who is right after us in the sizes of cities, they have 50 council members as well, leading them to a size of 54,000 people per district or per ward, as they might call it there. We've kept this number 15 for the last 100 years. And that's the same number as Providence, Rhode Island, in terms of number of council districts. So you can see that, like we've increased our ratio over time, but we don't have to stick with that. We know that folks have recognized this before in LA. Redistricting commissioners have lifted this up for Angelenos in reflection after their redistricting responsibilities. Folks have talked about this from like a racial equity and representation point of view. You can see even on the screen here, there's a bullet point. MALDAF, the organization, even was doing an analysis about this as long ago as 1999 when the last Charter Commission was taking place. And so again, this is not a new conversation that we're entering. It's also not a new conversation because other cities refresh their number council districts all the time. Here on your screen, we see that the biggest city in the nation, New York City, refreshed their charter around council size in 1989, and they did so thinking about diversity and representation as well. And so at that point, they jumped to 51. This time around, our most recent set of conversations around council expansion were really reignited as a result of the leaked audio tapes that happened, gosh, more than 3 years ago. Now, in it, we heard our council leaders, along with a labor leader in Los Angeles, joined forces to create lines that met their interests, often with racist ideologies undergirding their interests. And because they had the power and had a lot of power to create and draw the 15 districts, they felt like they wanted to do that for their own self-interest. What we know we've been able to do now is win independent redistricting for the city of LA, but that doesn't change the problem of having these giant districts, which operate as fiefdoms for our council members. I'm going to scoot on over to this slide. So now, as a result of lots of the work coming out of the Independent Redistricting Commission and conversations had since the leaked audio tapes, the city of LA has created a charter reform commission to reevaluate our city's charter. The city's charter operates kind of like our constitution. Our city charter commission is a commission of non-elected officials that are elected in part by some elected officials and in part by the commissioners themselves to fill in spots on the commission. We're supposed to have 13. We have 12. There's like one person who's sort of like been appointed but hasn't ever made it to the commission. So we're operating with 12 commissioners. You see their names on the screen. These are the commissioners who are volunteering their time to shepherd the city through many conversations about all sorts of charter reforms, including the possibility of expanding our city council or number of city council districts. Of the 12, they all are in different committees. And one of the committees is the government structure committee. The three people with diamonds on your screen are the three people on the government structure committee. That's the committee that is having initial conversations around what to do with council size. That's why we've demarcated them on the screen just like that, is so that you know these are the three people who are having those conversations and delivering initial conversations to the full commission of 12 people. That full commission of 12 people is led by Raymond Meza, who is denoted here as the chair of the commission. You see his name at the top. We're actually joined today by one of the commissioners, Carla Fuentes, who happens to be an LA Forward member, who happened to be selected to be on the commission. She didn't have to be. She didn't have to apply at all to the commission. But she's here as a learner to see how people are thinking about the various models that eventually she has to represent opinion for in the subcommittee called government structure, but also in her own engagement with other commissioners as well. So she's here to listen in and learn, but not to do anything sort of official from there on out. Um, Here are some important dates, which is why we're having this conversation today. The committee that Carla sits on, government structure, met and deliberated on November 19th, right before the Thanksgiving holiday, and left that meeting saying, hey, we're going to bring back to the full commission of 12 some possible models for council expansion. Those are the three models that you're going to hear about today. What we want to do is, because the commission is going to hear about these ideas in a more formal way on January 7th, we wanted to start popularizing the three models so that the public can engage in this conversation. We think it's important that there is public conversation around this. To our knowledge, not a lot of media has taken this up to be able to ensure this conversation is happening amongst Angelenos. So we thought, let's do our part. Let's get the ripples going in this big sort of wave we're trying to create. On the 7th, the full commission will begin to share their thoughts on the models, but it'll still go back to the government structure committee on January 22nd. From there, they'll do some continuing work with it before they throw things back to the full commission. And you see that in February and March is when the full commission of currently 12 people will begin to finalize the conversation. Cool. The other thing that I am going to start out with is by sharing that even though we're really digging into this because of the commission right now, they're only making recommendations to the city council, our current 15 city council members. And so they are going to be the ones who decide what to do these recommendations. It's possible that our commissioners come up with a really great recommendation that's very aligned with public voice after doing a bunch of engagement, and the council may throw it all away if they want to. So this is a double sort of phased approach that we have to take. Like we're exploring these models today for the sake of engaging with the commission, but we also have to engage with the council at some point because the council will get to decide what makes it to the ballot. And voters will have to vote and approve whatever model makes it through those various phases of work with the charter commission, the city council, and eventually to the ballot. So there's multiple phases of this. Essentially, like if we as a public really like a particular model, it becomes like a three-phase campaign to win something. So today, here's how we're just starting out, right? We're at the very beginning of that process of making our way to next November. And so today, our thought is, let's just expose people to the models. So I'm going to share the three models today with not a lot of analysis, frankly, because it's just from a point of clarity, like let's start at a place of understanding where we're starting at. However, on this call, because there are 58 of you on this call, we might as well make use of 58 amazing minds and perspectives. So we're going to put a Google Doc into the chat box shortly. And in that Google Doc, I'm going to invite folks to type in their responses to different questions and reactions to things. And we're going to use that as a place to sort of collect the collective wisdom of this group that is thinking about this. Because the way I might see something might be different from the way John sees something, from the way that David sees something, etc. So we just want to collect as many diverse perspectives and questions as possible as a way of really shoring up and making robust the public conversation and thinking about this. We will share some next steps for how people can engage. You can engage individually if you're like, I really love this model. I really want to make sure they hear from me. We'll let you know how you can do that. But some of you are members of organizations like LA Forward, LA Voice, AAPI Equity, or whoever. Like this might be a way you get yourself to an organizational perspective, as well as by beginning to spread the language into your communities and organizations. Here's what we're going to do. So we're going to go through each model one by one. I have a couple of slides prepared for each model. While we go over each model, again, there's going to be an opportunity to do some written processing. Some of that written processing may happen in silence. I might like physically pause and be like, let's process that. And you take notes on the document, do what you need to read a slide, right? Like imagine this like a class, a study session of sorts. Less discussion in those first set of 8-minute, 8-minute, 8-minute moments. Then we'll get to a synthesis portion where you'll get to see what other people wrote. And we can see if there's trends and concerns, trends and benefits people see, trends and questions. You can +1 people's comments and questions when we're on a Google Doc together. The goal is to begin to have a conversation. We've got 58, 60 people here. Now, like we can't all share the mic. And so the best way to share the mic is to put it on paper. So that's what we're gonna do because we only have an hour on here. At the very end, we'll talk about where you can go with this conversation. Today is just introductory. It's like not even just the 101 class, it's the first class of the 101 class. So that's where we're starting at today. It's a right size the approach for folks. I would love to invite Jason, if you haven't already done so, my colleague Jason, to put in the Google Doc on the screen, and I'm going to share it on my screen as well, just so you can see sort of where we're going to go from here. If you go to the Google Doc that Jason's put into the chat box, you'll see something that looks like this. I'm going to walk through each of these pages one by one. Again, we're going to spend about 8 minutes on each model. We'll talk about each of the different models. I have a couple of slides for each model. What you see on your screen right now is one model called single member districts. And this model, we'll talk about in a moment. If, as you're listening, you're like, wow, that's a benefit of that model, you can type in that benefit that you think about it here under benefits. If you're like, wow, that's a challenge of that model, you can type in the challenge that you are anticipating here. And then, like the challenges don't have to exist and only exist. Like we can actually write other policies around that to make so it's less true as a challenge. If you have like other ideas for reforms that would actually ensure that we're really reaping the benefits of something, put that in here. Like what would need to be true for this to like really, really work well. If you've just got questions, questions go in here. If you're like, Godfrey, I don't want to categorize any of my thoughts, you can just dump your stuff here in this bigger box. So each of the models we're going to walk through has a page of its own. So you'll scroll down this page and you'll see each of the models has the same exact like notes page. So this is where you want to join us to put down questions, to put down your thoughts, to contribute your collective thinking to this group. Again, we do have a commissioner on this call. If you're thinking something, put it down. Like this is your opportunity to put literally your thought in front of somebody who can also read your thought and has the power to move that thought forward. So we want to really invite you to engage on this document right now. Um, I'm going to start us out with single member districts. Again, so I'm going to pull up some slides. While I'm going over it, feel free to start typing if you have a thought to type. If you're like, nope, I just want to listen and read the slides, Godfrey, just do that. Don't worry about this. Google Doc, cool? So this is here if you're ready to put down thinking. If not, let's just listen and learn. Um, okay, so let's start here with single member expansion. I'm going to define this for everybody because it's a weird term, single member expansion. So we currently live in single member districts, meaning we've got 15 council members, or 15 districts, 15 council members, one council member per district, thus single member district, one member per district. And so one of the models of expansion that the committee is taking a look at and wants the commission to discuss is just changing the number and not just changing it, but expanding it. They've sat through many presentations from different organizations, academics, coalitions about how they've thought about expansion through the years. So with that in mind, with those presentations in mind, they took a look at some staff reports that were put together to try to summarize some of those recommendations from other organizations. And the committee is asking the commission to discuss moving our number of districts from 15 to 23 to 25 or to 31. That doesn't mean that other numbers can't exist. If you're sitting on this call, it's like, I love New York's 51. That doesn't mean that can't be in conversation. However, in initial deliberations, the committee said, we want people's opinions on these three. So, for now, like know that that's where the committee is putting weight behind discussion, 23, 25, and 31. Over the years, as different groups, including the RLA coalition, have looked at various numbers, they've done the math, right, of like what this means for the council size. I'm sorry, number of residents in each council district. So on the right-hand side of your screen, you see that right now with 15 districts each, we have about 266,000 residents per council member. And then underneath that, you see the calculation for what would be true in the current population. That if we had 23 districts, that's about 173,000 people per council member. As a reminder, that's New York currently. So to be equivalent to New York's 51 council members and what that creates in terms of a district size that they serve and they represent, 23 districts would do that same thing for LA. I see there's lots of like questions in the chat box, and that's fine. Feel free to continue doing that. But remember, the stuff in the Google Doc is the stuff that will be captured. If you've got concerns, you want to make sure that are lifted up for others. So I encourage people to go to the Google Doc, and if you've got concerns that you want to be memorialized, put them there. But if you do have like questions and you like chatting, feel free to chat. You'll see too the different calculations here for 25 districts and 31 districts as well. The number 31 comes from some of the studies that RLA did over the last few years and has presented to council. At 31, if we're concerned about particular neighborhoods and ethnic groups beginning to be represented by having smaller districts, 31 is the point where a neighborhood like Koreatown, if you go past 31, a neighborhood like Koreatown begins to get split. And so like if we had 33 districts, Koreatown could not quote unquote stay together as a community, begin to split up neighborhoods like that. That doesn't mean that we can't go beyond 31 and who is Koreatown to be the center of everything? But that is like one of the rationales that is just offered again for the sake of just study of this, of why 31 got into the picture. Now, a number of things are true. Here we're focusing on the number of districts and how many single member districts are being talked about in this expansion conversation. However, it's not just the number that the commission has to figure out. It's also how will these be introduced? It'll be probably sometime after the next census, but that doesn't have to be true. The Charter Commission could be like, we're gonna do this immediately, right? Like, or they could be like, we're gonna start with half of these districts, then we're gonna stagger the next half. So like the actual phasing in to this new system is something that the commission has to solve for. Another thing is, we're deciding this number right now. Like we decided 15 in 1925. We may decide 23, 25, 31 now. When's the next time that we should be revisiting? That's also a question the commission can give advice to if they want. So remember that this isn't just about a theory of expansion. It's also about a theory of implementation of all of this as well. So that's single member expansion here. We've spent some time here, again, just to get to know what this means. If you've got thoughts on single member expansion, including questions, benefits, challenges, reactions, a favorite number and why, any of those things, go to the Google Doc. And on the first page where it says single member expansion, that's where you would type in your different thoughts. I'm not looking at your thoughts right now. I'm focused on presenting, so I can't respond to you, but that's fine. Other people can respond to each other on there. You can +1 each other, highlight things, underline things, that kind of stuff. Cool. And just for reference, I am going to put, again, the number of people who live in a district in a variety of different cities on your screen, just to get a sense of, right now at about 266,000, we're highest ratio in the nation of residents to council members. But if you're curious about other cities and how many people they have in one district, therefore what a council member, who a council member would be accountable to, like what size of constituency, here are some examples of that. So just give a moment here to process before I move on to the next model. I'm just going to pause here, drink some water, and then I'm going to move on to the next model for folks. Okay. That's the first of 3 models. Now we're going to go from single member to multi-member. So now maybe this helps us to understand what multi-member might mean because we just discussed single member. Multi-member districts are exactly what they sound like. Multi-member districts mean In a district, you would have multiple council members. Right now, I'm a resident in Council District 10. I have one council member. In multi-member districts, I would have more than one council member in my district. So think about the benefits of that and the challenges of that. What questions that raises, just like the theory of having more than one council member for that district, for your district. Um, in this case, the commission is being asked to discuss a particular possibility, and that particular possibility is moving from 15 districts to 9 districts. So the number of districts actually becomes smaller, moving from 15, which we have currently, to 9. But then imagine now we have more than one council member per district. So even if we went down to 9 districts, the commission is asking us to imagine, what if we had 3 council members per district? 3 council members, 9 districts, 27 people on a city council. That is this particular proposal called multi-member districts that the committee is asking the commission to discuss and give thoughts on January 7th. So again, to contrast, we are currently in a single member district system. This is a multi-member district system. Single member means one council member per district. Multi-member means more than one. And the commission has suggested 3. Remember, multi-member could mean 5. It could mean 2. Could mean many things. The model that is being discussed is 3 people per district, 9 districts. Now you may be asking yourself, like right now I know to vote for one person. How would we arrive at 3 people for a particular district? The short answer is that the commission has to draft that plan for implementation, that theory of implementation. How do they expect voters to land at 3? And so on this next screen is just a number of different ways. There is like a particular way that is like bubbling up the most in conversation, and it's ranked choice voting, which New York uses and some other cities use to arrive at their particular elected officials. Portland actually recently decided to instate for itself 3 people per district and ranked choice voting at the same time. Today is not a ranked choice voting teach-in. So today we're not going to go into the depths of ranked choice voting, how it works, etc. But the idea, of course, is that you would rank your first choice, your second choice, your third choice, your fourth choice, etc. on the ballot. And through a variety of different processes, that would be able to help the aggregate find number 1, number 2, number 3. Again, today is not a ranked choice voting teach-in. But I will say that that is the question that's come up the most as it relates to how to arrive at a 3-person district in terms of representation. But the commission could be like, nope, not ranked choice voting. It's just going to be top 3. Or no, we're going to create seats. This is the tenant seat. This is the homeowner seat. Right? Like they literally creating a democracy means that it's coming up with the rules. So there's no foregone conclusion. I will say that the conversation most happening is a ranked choice vote conversation as far as how to arrive at the 3 in this model. And as it looks like there's a little bit of conversation in the chat box about Portland in particular. So we do have this slide about Portland. What's interesting about Portland is Portland didn't go from single member, which is what we do, to multi-member. Remember, we are single member, meaning we have 15 districts, 1 council member per district. Portland went from 5 at large, so they had 5 council members that all oversaw the entire city, and they decided we should district. And when we district, we should have 3 council members represent each district. So they went from 5 council members to 12 council members, no districts to 4 districts is what Portland did. So again, that's just a little bit of primer of an example that at least one other city is doing this kind of work. So let's pause here. Again, giving people time to process. And in the chat box, I see people are reminding folks to go into the link to participate and draft any questions you have, any benefits of this particular model that you're thinking about, any challenges of this model, any questions that is coming up or reactions you have. I'm seeing some of those reactions in the chat box. Again, that's great. But to memorialize them, go to the Google Doc and make sure to memorialize your thought so that we have like an at a glance, like what do 64 people think kind of document. Cool. I'll give people a moment to go over there and type in. Yep, it's at the tiny URL, Carolina. So as long as it's a tiny URL, you've got the Google Doc. We'll probably switch it off to view only at some point after tonight. That way people can't erase it. But the thinking lives on. Um, give yourselves a moment to process. Again, multi-member, type in the document. And in a moment, I'm going to transition to our third model. Okay. I'm going to move on to a third. I just visited the Google Doc on my on my phone, and you all are writing a lot. This is great. This is what I mean by collective wisdom. I'm clearly not able to read it right now, but yes, keep putting things on there. Um, the third model is a little bit of a hybrid. So it builds off of the single member expansion idea and then adds a regional district overlay. Here's what that means, and maybe the diagram on your screen would help. So imagine a system where we've got single member districts. I have a council member, you have a council member, and you're in a different district. Imagine expanding from 15 single member districts to 20 single member districts. So that's a suggestion that the commission is being asked to discuss right now. So let's pretend that we are going from 15 to 20. So we have more council districts with one council member in each of those. Then you would get a regional district overlaying over that. You would get 5 regional districts that contain 4 single member districts each. So if you look at the diagram on your screen, you can see that in this model, there's council districts that have 1 council member each that fit into a larger regional district. And each regional district would have 4 districts in it. This is a little bit like how our current state assembly and state senate work, right? We have assembly districts, and we've got state senate districts that are larger. And so there's 5 regional districts in this model that the commission is being asked to discuss, each with their own council member. So there's 5 council members for each 5 council members, 1 for each regional district, 5 regional districts. The single member districts would also have their own council member. 20 single member districts, 20 council members. 20 plus 5 equals 25 is the overall council size. The 25 council size is 5 regional district council members, 20 single member districts that have council members. In this particular scenario, I see Stephanie's question in the chat box. Stephanie asked, would the regional district have any different power? The commission decides, right? Like this is about creating the rules. And so there's like the benefits. What would the benefits be of having the council member powers be the same? What would the benefits be of having the regional district council members have slightly different powers? And what powers would they be? Those are literally rules that can be created to this. There's no predetermination. The proposal is simply that I, as a resident Koreatown, would have my council member of my single member district, and I would have a regional district council member at the same time. That's why this is a little bit of a hybrid, right? Like I have a single member district that only thinks about me, or that I only think about that person. But then there's this other person who I could also go to, who also represents my district. They also represent three other districts at the same time. So that's this overlay here. Um, One question that I have about it is I don't know other cities off the top of my head that operate like this. However, we do know that some of this idea came from a set of academics that studied council expansion in other cities. They were the LA Governance Reform Task Force that helped to inform independent redistricting, et cetera. You can go to their website. You could look up LA Governance Reform academics or something. There was Cal State LA, Pomona. There were a bunch of academics on it. Um, they suggested this model after studying at-large districts. At-large districts is a model in other cities where a council member can represent the entire city, not a district, but at large, literally like the whole city. And in some cities like Houston, they mix single member districts with at-large council members. So they have someone who represents them and then these other at-large council members as well. This is not quite that. This is an adaptation of that. In this model, again, you've got a single member council member, so the council member that represents me directly, and then you've got someone who represents the region. The region is 4 council districts large, not the entire city, right? So this is like an iteration of that at large model in that way. Thank you, Erica, for putting that into the chat box. I'm going to pause here and let people again chew on that and type into the document benefits you see about this hybrid model of single member expansion plus the regional overlay with the regional districts. Put in any benefits, any challenges, things that you think ought to be true in order to make this work, questions and reactions. I'm going to give you a moment to process and type, and we'll come back together. There's a question in the chat box. Is there a chance the city council could negate all of this and do whatever they want? Yes. If folks missed the first sort of 15 minutes of this call, we walked through the process. Right now, the commission is attempting to arrive at a recommendation of expansion. Their recommendation of expansion could be any of these 3 models, but whatever model they arrive at to send city council in April, city council can do whatever they want to it. They can change the numbers, they can change the model, they don't have to move forward any model of expansion. We are expecting the commission to almost definitely send forward a model of expansion. The chair of the commission has said such in public and has started to meet with council members trying to prepare them to receive a council expansion proposal. What that proposal looks like, we don't know yet, and that's the language we're trying to develop today. But part of today's theory is not just preparing ourselves for commission engagement, but to the point in the chat box that Eric is making, this is also like advocates and regular everyday people like us also have to popularize these ideas if you are in favor of any of these ideas with council members. There's 2 audiences to get through before something arrives to the ballot, a commission and the city council. So that's just, there's that. Of course, like if the city council like does away with a a recommendation that is provided to them by the commission, they're like, nope, we won't do that. Like it doesn't mean that that idea completely dies. It just means that dies right now. Like it won't get on the ballot for next year. But people power is a real thing, and we have seen measures go onto the ballot because of a number of signatures that residents in the city can collect in favor of doing something. So you can always get something on the ballot with also the power of regular people. And this language could be helpful in inspiring any movement of how to get this to be the LA that you want it to be. Again, right now, what we're entertaining is that it's possible that this commission could be on the side of people in developing an LA that is more meaningful to us from a representation standpoint. And this is great sort of language just build in general as we think about expansion altogether. What I'm going to do right now is I'm going to give people some time. I'm going to exit out of my slideshow and I'm going to join you on this document. This is my first time pulling up the document on the screen. I've only been seeing it on my phone. And so I clearly haven't been able to read anything. But what I'm seeing is people have been reading people's, you know, comments and remarks. What I'm seeing is people using comments or +1 or +2ing each other. If there's something that like really represents a point of view that you have, feel free to put +1 next to it. Put +1 next to a +1, etc. And that way we just get a sense too of where the energy is on this call. Um, and as I scroll down, I'm seeing people use the +1 model to talk about various benefits and challenges that they're interested in. Oh, y'all have lots of benefits for the first model, single member expansion. And I'm just scrolling down now. Again, this is my first time seeing this, just to get a sense of trends of how people are engaging with each of these models. On multi-member, it looks like there's like a lot to think through in terms of like the challenges that are coming to people immediately. That doesn't mean that we haven't said yes to challenging things before as a city. I would actually say as a city, sometimes things happen that I disagree with wholly, but they happen. And so just this is great for us to name challenges and benefits to all of these models because we're going to see where the conversation goes. And the language here of challenges and benefits is language that you all can use in different talking points as you discussed with other folks behind a favored strategy of yours, using for public comment, etc. I'm seeing, wow, this list is long. And lots of reactions here, great. And I'm looking at single member expansion plus adding the regional overlay and seeing and getting a sense here. Looks like some people are still thinking through this one. So I want to make sure that I'm not rushing people through their writing. If you haven't gotten to the last model yet and you want to +1 things, add things to this single member expansion plus regional overlay conversation. Feel free to keep typing, +1ing things. I see anonymous platypus typing things in real time. Totally great. And you see that on the bottom, again, lots of different, wow, lots of, someone very complicated, someone said. Um, um, Thank you all for your candidness in sharing your different thoughts here. What we're going to do is, again, you're going to have access to this document at this tiny URL. We'll probably view only after 7 p.m. today, just to make sure that like this thinking gets protected and make sure it's all in one place. And again, like what's on here doesn't mean it can't be solvable. Um, the really like this, like this piece here about like what would need to be true, like it's possible for us to solve challenges that are underneath the challenge component of it. In a conversation with a city council member, for example, who expressed some hesitation behind single member expansion, this council member mentioned like, this would make sense to me if there was also campaign finance reform. For example, it would give this council member faith that regular people could then run across all these many districts that we would expand into, is one thing that this council member said, right? So that's an example of what would need to be true for us to mitigate the challenges and reap the benefits of a model. So just want to give people that sort of creative license as well, that even as we name challenges, are there things we can do to actually mitigate those challenges is something to also put into those columns. So feel free to keep reading what you have on there. Again, today is very much just an introductory conversation to socialize this language across all of us. What I want to do is, while you continue typing, because I'm still seeing people type, um, uh, like now that we've had this starting point of a conversation, you might be wondering, where can I go with my perspective? My first thought to you is join an organization, become more powerful than a single voice, get together with your neighbors, like have this conversation with more people and find your people. And then when you find your people, like you have access to the commission. What you can do is you can go to this website that I just put on the screen, reformlacharter.lacd.gov. This is where you can keep track of all this information that I'm putting on this slide. All I did on this slide was sort of digest it for you and consolidate in one place, but there is literally a meeting schedule on reformlacharter.lacd.gov. And you can see the past minutes, past video even or recordings of past meetings. But again, the next time the commission will be talking about this as a commission, as a full commission of 12, is January 7th. Let's picture ourselves in January 7th. People are on holiday brain. They ate too much. They went on vacation. Their kids are about to go back to school and they're tired, right? It's like a, that's that feeling. So on the 7th, the commission will be discussing these models. My advice to anybody here who is interested in advocacy is you don't have to wait till January 7th to begin popularizing thinking that you're really interested in, right? You have between now and whenever they begin to shut down in about 3 weeks, the city, to send emails, make public comment, etc. So in a moment, I'm going to share with you where you can make public comment and how you might do that, how you can send in a written comment. So your opinions start to begin to help shape the conversation that people are going to have. Because on the 7th, they're going to start talking, and you want to inform their talking before the 7th. But remember, the 7th isn't when it's all said and done. Things will go back to a government structure committee on the 22nd. That's 3 people discussing what the full commission discussed. And then they'll go back to full commission in February and March before something gets passed to city council. So we have the next quarter of a year to really shape the public conversation around this. And in an ideal world, really understand the pros and cons of each of these. There are many different types of models. Not every Angeleno is going to be happy with each of the models, right? So like that's like just the kind of democratic world we're going to be living in over the next quarter as we consider these various forms of representation. But what's really neat about this opportunity is we're being given a serious opportunity to talk about change in representation to a structure that's existed for 100 years. That's not every day. Some people have described this as a once in a lifetime type of ability to inform our city. So that's one of the reasons why we thought let's popularize this language tonight. As I promised, here are some ways to get involved. In a moment, I'm going to pass things to David to talk about ways that LA Forward dues paying members are going to be able to get involved and help formulate an organizational set of perspectives. But for anyone and everyone here, you have ability to give oral comment at any of the reform hearings that are taking place because they are public. There's also written comment, and there's an easy email address where your written comment can go to, and you see it on your screen. That's reformlacharter@lacity.org. Your emails are the public comment. In fact, if they are sent by 3 p.m. a day before a meeting takes place, your comment sent to that email address appears in a packet that's printed out for the commissioners at that meeting. So if you sent in theoretically something to reformlacharter@lacity.org on January 6th, the day before the January 7th hearing by the full commission, by 3 p.m., they're going to get it printed out for them. Does it mean they're going to read it? Who knows? But they get it in a packet. And so that's a way to get literally in front of commissioners with a thought. I'm going to pass to David to share how LA Forward's dues paying members
Yeah.
can get involved.
Yeah, so we at LA Forward, which is a 501(c)(4) organization which can do things, endorse ballot measures, endorse candidates. Um, we try to do as much as possible to let members make decisions about the big, big decisions. Not like what are we going to do tomorrow, but which candidates we want to endorse and support and include in our voter guide, which and other big decisions. And one of these big decisions is like what model we should pursue. Because I have some thoughts about what might be politically feasible or where I think is least confusing or where I think the biggest upside is. But like it's just like with endorsing candidates, it's really important for us to feel like even if we don't get 100% consensus, which is usually impossible on something this complicated and murky and messy, like we don't want to advocate for a position, between single district expansion or multi-member or kind of hybrid without really like having full buy-in from our members. And so we're going to be hosting a members only discussion, a deliberative conversation, deliberation on Monday, December 15th. That's in 12 days from now, 7 to 8 p.m. And if you want to be part of that, we welcome you, if you're not already a dues paying member, to become a dues paying member. You can do that at la4.org/member. Um, and to become a dues paying member, it's literally any amount per month. So we have people who do $2 a month. So, finances are really tight. We have people who do $20 a month. That's kind of the average. We have people who do $200 a month, 2000. Like it's all over because we're really proud to be a multi-class community, a multiracial community. We want membership to be accessible to everybody. So encourage you to become a member. Not only will you get to participate um, in this deliberation on the 15th, but we're going to be having more candidate forums coming up, members only candidate forums, where we're going to listen to the candidates in CD3 and CD5, different council districts, and decide collectively who we're going to endorse. So encourage you to become a member at the link in the chat if you haven't already, and would love to see you on the 15th as well. And
Thanks
again,
so
like
much.
any amount of money, like don't let money be the obstacle. $1 a month, $2 a month. We welcome it. Any amount.
Thanks, David. Sathir put the link in the chat box as well. Yes, as Sathir said, please become a member. Um, Sathir also leads our charter reform group, which meets every other Monday. Sathir, are you able to come on and hype up the working group of volunteers that has been focusing not just on this issue, but on many different issues at the City Charter Commission? Are you able to say hi?
Absolutely.
There you
So,
are.
like Godfrey mentioned earlier, the Charter Reform Commission has four different subcommittees. What we were talking about today, council expansion, is what's being discussed on one of those four subcommittees. All four of the subcommittees, which include government structure, the one we're dealing with today, personnel and budget, better government, and planning and infrastructure, are discussing and deliberating on really big, important, once in a lifetime issues. And in the governance reform working group that's meeting every other Monday night, we're tracking the conversations that are happening across all four of those subcommittees. Not only are we tracking the conversation, we're contributing where we think conversations should be happening. Just 2 weeks ago, earlier this month, we had an email campaign dedicated to making sure police reform became a part of the conversation of the Personnel and Budget Committee. And we've heard that it's being agendized for December 11th. And a lot of that was the work that our group, our coalition partners, did in making sure that they advocated in person, virtually through our email campaign to make sure that conversation wasn't omitted or overlooked. So that's just a glimpse, one small piece of what we do. But if you're excited to learn more about the big conversations, big changes that are coming to LA City, would love to have you every other Monday night in our governance reform working group. Also, feel free to email me, and I'll put my email in the chat if you want to learn a little bit more about what it means to be involved in a working group. We cater to people who can drop in just once that month, or people who are committed and want to take more of a leadership role on in the group. So don't let your worries around time commitment stop you from joining us. Yeah, we'd love to see
Thanks,
some of you
Sathir.
there.
And one of the exciting things that the Charter Reform Working Group is doing is actually on the 18th is building an opportunity for you all to engage in person with at least two commissioners that have committed to hear from community voices in person in the evening in the downtown LA area. These two commissioners have committed to go from literally a commission meeting where they're the ones doing most of the talking to a place where community will be the ones doing most of the talking. And so we don't have an RSVP yet for that particular event, but if you want to save the date for the 18th, and then again, follow us at LA Forward on your favorite social media channel, or if you become a member, you'll be able to get some sort of email that lets you know when registration is up and running for that engagement event, because it doesn't have to stop tonight. It doesn't have to be in writing. We can continue to engage with each other in the future in person as well. And that's open to everybody, not just members of LA Forward. That takes us all the way to the hour mark. As we said, this would be fast and furious. It's the first class of a 101 is what folks got today. So really appreciate, again, you all for taking the time to nerd out today about the future of our city, the possible futures of our city. And we hope you don't go away. Your voices are needed. If your voices go away, things will happen without us. and then we're going to be mad. So let's not do that. Let's be in it from the get-go. And would really appreciate being in touch with you all. We're going to shut off the recording and shut off the Zoom because there's actually a climate justice